I think I'm on. Ah, there we go. Well, welcome everyone. We're happy to have you here. It's a little different format for you guys and for us also, but I think we'll figure it out. And welcome. There's just about 35 people listening in or watching. That's all good, and we hope this is going to be a great tool for you. Now, what we want to talk about is basically saving pollinators 1 yard at a time. Now, let's face it here. You know, one of the things that well, you know, we're just going to have some issues here. I can tell already. So I'm trying to. There I am. You know, hey, what does a pollinator have to do to get some respect around here? Well, you know, it's sort of interesting. When we have problems in our industry, a lot of times you don't hear about it a whole bunch. And sometimes you have to go around dressed in a bee outfit to get people to notice some things. But let's face it, right now, with what's going on out in the real world, it's out there. People know that bees, butterflies, and other pollinators are disappearing at an alarming rate out there. You know, you don't really have to look much further than to see that when it's on the CBS News, when it's on NPR, when it's on any number of these big media outlets, you know that you've made it. Let's face it, a lot of our normal everyday problems that we have at our businesses, we're the last people to get publicity. But at this point, we're getting publicity about a problem that we actually hold the solution to for our customers. And let me tell you, your customers are aware of it. I have been at garden centers and have definitely done some talks out there. And you know, if I could really get these slides up here for you, I'd be really happy. So without pressing a button 100 times, but I'm working on it here. Let's if any of you guys get the New York Times, you notice that last year they did a whole series of stuff on disappearing monarchs. It was a huge topic for them. It seemed like every month they had an article in there. This particular one pictured on this slide was one in the beginning of November talking about the year the monarchs didn't appear. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and how they've determined that they haven't appeared. And probably the real big one this past year, the real big coverage was this cover of Time magazine here, and talking about a world without bees. And that's really as good a place to start as any. This is about a 5-page article, very interesting article, fairly well done, and it raised a number of issues that were pertinent to what we're talking about here. So there we go. So let's talk about the facts here a little bit. And a lot of this we need to just to frame what's going on out there. And let me tell you, your customers have heard about a lot of this stuff. Now, the fact of the matter is that monarchs are down from about 90% from their peak counts. Now, it's an interesting story to figure out how people actually figure that out. Does someone go out there with a little pad and paper and just count monarchs and come up with an accurate figure? It's a sort of a good question to ask, but really what happens is that they survey the forest where the monarchs end up migrating to. There's a particular place in Mexico that has been the resting place for monarchs coming back in their migration. And this measurement started in the early 90s, and the peak of that count for monarchs was in 1996, I believe. And at that point, the monarchs covered about 46.5 acres of land. And let me tell you, when I say cover, they really do cover. They're wing to wing on every tree in that area. It's if you've seen the pictures of it, it's tremendous. It's an amazing feat, to be honest with you, to even wonder how they can do that. Now, in the last survey in 2014 or 2013, there was there was 1.45 acres covered. So you can see it's really more than 90% that this that the migration numbers have gone down. That's huge. Another fact: a third of the honeybee colonies died off in the winter of 2013. That's been part of an ongoing problem that has been really occurring with great acceleration over the last 10 years with honeybees. Another fact: honeybees are so important to our food crops. It's just amazing when you add it up. We've kind of tried to hit the middle here, but the fact of the matter is that you can find surveys out there that say that honeybees add anywhere from $10 to $20 billion a year to American farming. Just the value of what they pollinate. And believe me, there's particular crops out there that are completely 100% bee dependent. And you can imagine why farmers that are totally dependent on this business are really looking at this and looking at it as a true crisis. So how do we put in terms that people can understand about how honeybees affect what they buy in the grocery store? Well, some forward-looking place, a store, a Whole Foods store in Rhode Island, decided to put it on demonstration this past summer. And what they did is they opened up their produce department, and their produce department normally carried 453 items. You got a kind of a shot of it right there. It's full up. It looks like your typical Whole Foods place. Lots of goodies there. Lots of wonderful fruit and all these great items. And what they decided to do is to take off the shelf the products that were solely dependent on honeybees for pollination. And I'll have to say it's remarkable. Look at that. So you can see full pieces of real estate there that are completely out of product, and what it turned out to be that 453 items were stocked in this store, and it turned out that once they removed all the honeybee items, the honeybee pollinated items, there was 237 items left. So as we can see, honeybees do not pollinate everything, but they pollinate a lot of those goodies that we really like: apples, many fruit trees, almonds, all those things like that. And it's really stunning, if you look at it that way, how dependent some of these crops are on honeybee pollination. Just to give you a further example, almonds, it turns out, and I didn't really know this until I did a little research, but almonds are actually the biggest agricultural export from California. And it is totally honeybee dependent, this crop. There's no other pollinator that's out there. And this past year, they really literally had to import beehives from virtually all over the country to make sure that there were enough bees at the time that the trees were flowering to actually get pollination as heavily as they needed to get the crop that they needed. And that is where that is stunning, really, when you consider how freely and how they never had to import bees, really, except for the last 2 or 3 years. So it's a real problem out there. So what does it mean for us? Well, the loss of pollinators, native pollinators, honeybees, that kind of thing, it would leave the planet poorer and hungrier. There's no doubt about it. Now, interestingly, a lot of grain crops out there, wheat, rice, corn, all those things are less dependent on bee pollination. But the things that we really like, all those goodies, are things that things that we enjoy from our produce department are things that are going to be missing. So it's a problem that's going to affect us. It's going to raise prices, and it's one of those big problems that people look at and say, wow, they feel powerless. But as we're going to see further on, there are things that the everyday person can do to help make this better. But let's go through a few of the issues here and start talking about kind of set the table. Everybody agrees that there's an issue here. So let's see if we can look into the reason why some of these issues are happening. So let's look at these honeybees first. So, you know, there's a lot of culprits out there, and frankly, there's a lot of information floating around, and there's not a lot of people that really have what I would call the true definitive answer of what's going on out there. But there's no doubt about it, when people talk about any type of insect being killed off, there being issues with, it always ends up coming back to insecticides. And it's understandable, absolutely, because we have a lot of these things that are available to us as homeowners, and we also have many of these things that are needed tools for us as producers out there. So what are people to do given this? Well, let's talk about the research that's gone on out there. There's a group of chemicals that are called neonicotinoids that many people, especially people listening in here today, are probably familiar with. Now, neonicotinoids are a chemical that are a systemic chemical that are widely used out there. And there's been speculation at this point that they may have a hand in the colony collapse disorder. And you know, there's a lot of information out there. These chemicals have been seen in the studies of the hives that are out there, and there's a lot of thought that this may be one of the factors. And I would say that while there is no research at this point that truly pins these chemicals, again, no real research that has an absolute cause and effect between these chemicals and colony collapse disorder out there, it is quite possible that these chemicals have a piece of the cause. There's no two ways about that. I would tell you that there's other chemical uses also that we'll show you further on, and that we can talk about from a homeowner point of view and a professional point of view. You should never, ever spray any chemical when there's flowers out on plants, because most of those chemicals will kill bees automatically in that area. So that's something that's really important to talk to your customers about anyway, is that as long as there's open flowers, we should never, ever be spraying chemicals out there. And the other thing with neonicotinoids, the regulations on using these are changing rapidly. We at Pride's Corner Farms are looking to move away from these chemicals. We are certainly going to we absolutely this year are moving away from all foliar use of these chemicals, because that's the absolute easiest form to cause problems with pollinators that may be in the area. And we are pushing our suppliers hard to get replacements for these chemicals, because in our business here, while we don't like using chemicals, we have to use chemicals, and we are looking for the right thing to do. There's no two ways about it. And as we'll refer to in our butterfly end of things, we are not using neonicotinoids at all when it comes to any host plant for butterflies, because that is where the evidence is very very clear and very focused, that using neonicotinoids on plants that larval forms are consuming is a definite detriment to those pollinators or butterflies and moths. So that is a given at this point, that those chemicals at Pride's Corner Farms are not to be used. So, but is that the only reason going on? Is that the only reason that there's been colony collapse disorder? And I would tell you there's other reasons out there, and it always comes in the form of an introduced pest, doesn't it? And this particular mite that's pictured here is called the varroa mite, and this was an introduced pest into America in the late 1980s. And this has quickly become a real problem in hives across the country and across the world. This particular mite preys upon honeybees. And you can see in the picture on the left, you can see the mites actually attached to the bee there. They actually feed on this bee, weaken them, and they are a definite cause of bee death in hives. There's also different types of fungus that attack honeybees. There's a fungus. There's an invertebrate fungus that is rampant among hives at this point, and they found strong evidence of this in many of the hives that have collapsed. The other thing I can tell you is that let's face it, as we've developed land, as we've moved stuff around, as we paved over areas, native sources of pollen, that food that they need to get from place to place when those bees and pollinators are flying around, guess what? That stuff is getting fewer and far between all the time. Yeah, we've got beautiful flowers in our yards. We're going to talk about some of these plants a little bit later on, but as you'll see a little bit further on, the fact of the matter is that there's an absolutely diminishing amount of plants out there that bees can visit to get what they need to survive and thrive. So let's talk about butterflies. We did cover this a little bit, talking again about those neonicotinoids a couple minutes ago. That's a definite problem. Those chemicals and others can be a real problem out there. And let's face it, homeowners need to be trained a little bit that it's okay for some of their plants to have holes in the leaves and have some of the leaves consumed. You know, we have a picture right here of Asclepias, the absolute key plant for monarch butterflies. And the reason that any homeowner should want this plant is to go out there and view it and say, look at those 2 leaves. I'm going to have lots of monarchs this coming year, because it is a key. If they don't have that plant, they are not going to survive. And you're going to see how important that is a little bit later on in this talk. Maybe even the next slide, as a matter of fact. So here we are. This might be a typical thing in the Midwest right now, but as you may or may not know, corn is king right now. Corn is king out there in the Midwest, and it's genetically altered corn also, because not only is there a lot more acres going into corn because of the fact that corn is now used in all our fuels out there. 15% of what makes up a gallon of gas that goes into our tanks is corn-based at this point. So people are making money on this. So lots of land that is laying dormant is gone into now putting more corn out there. And this corn has been genetically altered, as I said, to be able to tolerate the use of herbicides, specifically Roundup. And as you can see, what that means is that you can have a field of corn, and people can go out and they can spray the corn and have a weed-free field, because they can spray over the top of it with a broad-spectrum herbicide like that and kill all the weeds. And just as a matter of fact, one of the big weeds that's being killed is milkweed, that's been growing in amongst the corn or on the edges of the fields. One of the biggest reasons that can be traced back for monarch loss, and we talked about that census back down there in Mexico. One of the real reasons is that a lot of the monarchs that go back to Mexico go through and come back through the Midwest. There's no milkweed there. There's no host plant, no essential host plant, and the population is going to plummet. So that's a pretty strong cause and effect there. But the other thing, and again, we've talked about this with bees, I call it the suburban desert. Now, this may be a little bit of a dated photo, to be honest with you. I mean, we may have grown up in houses like this. For us old timers, that almost looks sort of nostalgic there. That beautiful trimmed evergreen in front that your father slaved over for a full weekend to get that beautiful shape. But I've got to say that things are only worse at this point. Now this is, look at this development that we're pictured right here on the PowerPoint. This is not an atypical development out there in suburbia at this point. You know, butt-to-butt houses, small lots, a little patch of grass, very few plants. Let me tell you, this is like dropping us on a sand dune in the middle of the Sahara Desert. If you're looking at a pollinator going through there trying to find food, there's definitely a no vacancy sign up there, if you will, for the pollinators. This is the worst of what's going on out there from the homeowner point of view. And guess what? All these problems that we've talked about over the last 20 minutes to establish this issue, many of those issues, the mites, the fungal problems, the possible effect of particular chemicals, all of these are having to do with the stress of the fact that there's not enough in our neighborhoods native plants for these pollinators to feed on. Sometimes, as we know, that when you're weakened from particular things, and again, food stress is one of those things, if you're weakened, you're going to be susceptible to any number of different things like those other factors that we talked about. So it's very important to know that in the long run, we all have a role in this. We, as sellers of plants to your consumers, have a role, and the consumer themselves have a role. This is something, a lot of times we're powerless on particular things. You know, back in with gas prices, the gas shortages, you know, there's always someone else to blame out there for some of these things. And in this case, there's probably other people to blame too. But what I would tell you that's different about this particular thing is that everybody can do their part. Now, there's a professor from the University of Delaware. His name is Doug Tallamy, and he has a book that really is in a lot of ways the Bible for native plant usage in America and the world. And it's a great book. Many of you, I'm sure, have looked at it, read it, and his really what his thought is is that everybody needs to work to create islands of native plants in neighborhoods, roads, along roadsides, anything along those, anywhere where we live, because that is going to be the key element that is going to allow pollinators to survive and thrive. So, and a lot of people can make that makeover. Just as this slide shows, there's a landscape on the left there. There's a traditional one on the right. The one on the left has far more variety of plants in it. There's more color. There's more flower. There's opportunity to put plants out there that bloom all year round that can support a lot of these native butterfly pollinators and bees all through the season. So, what would I do if I was helping you at your garden center to sell your customers? Well, let's face it, as we said, always have to use insecticides and herbicides judiciously. Never when flowers are open, always following the label direction. And even if you're doing that, to only use it is absolutely necessary. That is a key item in my mind. Less lawn. Hey, I know sometimes the only time you get a man into the garden center is to buy that 4-step program, and so he can get out in his riding lawnmower and just be king of the world out there. Well, you know, the key is to have less lawn and more plants. Lawn might as well be that sand in the Sahara. It is as useful to native pollinators as that, and really any other insect out there. Lawns are useless plants, really, when you come down to that. Now, a lot of times what we hear from people is, well, you know, yeah, we got all these native plants, but you know, they're sort of roadside weeds. You know, they don't really look good. You know, all these kind of new plants that are out there, aren't they better plants? Well, let's take a look at a few native landscapes here. I defy you to look at a landscape like this and tell you that it's not interesting, that it's not exciting, and that there's not a lot in there that makes your property better. So, as we said, the key is to get more American Beauties native plants in the landscape. To me, the program is perfect for you guys out there to try to sell native plants. Now, many of you guys are going to say, well, you know, I have native plants out there. I've always had them. I mean, you know, my homeowners just don't buy them. Well, I'm going to tell you it's because how can they find them out there? How do people know that they're native plants? Unless you have something that's going to show you that it is a native plant, that gives the customers more information about those particular plants and has some tools they can get in mind and say, yes, this is what I'm looking for. It's hard to do that when it's a black pot with a generic tag and you having to go out there and point them out to everybody. This is a way that native plants could be in one place in your garden center and that people can find them, and you are able to guide people to particular things and talk to them about these plants. And as I said, native plants are the key to this pollinator problem. They're the best nectar source for all pollinators. And you can see another great example of this is a fall bed, almost a meadow type of situation, lots of activity, beautiful looking. But the biggest point to bring out is that native plants have evolved with native pollinators. They work with each other. These are plants that are needed to for these pollinators to survive. They've evolutionary have developed together, and they need each other. And you know, they also provide different things like shelter, food, and this little item of pharmaceutical help. A lot of times when they go and feed on these plants, there's chemicals in plants that makes them stronger. It's hard to believe that, but if you look at plants like oak trees that are responsible for hosting 500 plus different native pollinators, the reason that they're such a great plant is because they provide that shelter and food, as I said, but they also provide chemicals needed for these particular insects to survive and fight off different problems that they might face. So there's lots of different great native gardens, as you can see. The real question is how does someone go about getting these plants? And what are some of these plants that are really important for people to get? Well, let's talk about a few of the plants here. And really, before I go into these plants, so one of the things I think I really want to talk about is to say, why are not all plants created equal? Why are some of the plants that are being raised right now, all these new varieties that you're finding that, let's face it, if you're buying perennials out there, we're sort of being overloaded with, it seems, with new varieties. They're always bigger blooms, longer blooming, all that kind of thing. So why aren't they good sources of pollen for pollinators out there? Well, the fact of the matter is many of them are lab creations. There's no two ways about it. But many of these plants, one of the reasons that they bloom so large with those big flowers, and some of the reasons they bloom so long, is because there's less pollen to attract people, to attract pollinators, and there's also many of these plants do not develop seed. That's one of the reasons why they flower so long. So again, they're sort of barren when it comes to being able to provide the goodies that pollinators need. Now, does that mean that every landscape should ban these plants and that they're really sort of taboo and that they can't add something to the landscape? No. Everything should be used in moderation. A good landscape has a number of different things on there, and even though I was bashing lawns there a little bit earlier, lawns are not a bad thing, but it's not it's everything in moderation. So yes, you can get those great new plants that look good in the garden and can be used and provide long bloom, but the important thing is to supplement those things with these great plants, and they are great plants. They're easy to take care of, most of these plants. They survive well in sometimes some of the worst conditions in the landscape, and they provide what pollinators need. So having said that, let's go through quickly a few of these plants that are pretty important. And as you're going to see a little bit later on, we're going to have a compilation of many of these plants, as we are here at Pride's Corner Farm trying to develop more tools so that you can use for you guys to use at your garden center, both to educate your staff and also to educate your customers. So, as I mentioned earlier, oaks are one of the most incredibly important trees in American Beauties, and the important trees for pollinators. And trees are key. And really, when you get down to it, all these plant types are key to have that integrated landscape that's going to support pollinators. And frankly, I'm going to tell you that sometimes, especially if you have a service that does landscapes out there, that cleans up or provides maintenance on a weekly basis, a lot of the things, we clean up those landscapes, they're pristine, they're almost sterile how clean some of these landscapes are. And I would tell you that having a little bit of junk, a few leaves, a wood pile, some branches at some point off in the back of a landscape is really a key thing, because not only do we have to have those plants like shelter and nesting and all that for these pollinators, we really need to have some of those other things. I can tell you right now that things like bumblebees that are out there that are a huge pollinator for a huge native pollinator need those little places, those little cubby holes that wood piles and things like that provide, so that they can nest. And that's a good thing. Providing those things and having a little bit of what we would consider quote unquote junk in the landscape is not a bad thing. So we talked about oaks. Another great native is sugar maple. Supports hundreds of native pollinators, and obviously one of the signature trees for the Northeast with its fall color. White pine, again, this is a plant that is sort of ubiquitous out there. We use it as screening a lot of times. It's a big plant. Obviously, all these trees are big, but every yard needs these things. Every neighborhood needs these things to provide that shelter and food source. Pine is another plant that supports well over 200 different native pollinators. River birch, another really good signature plant for the Northeast. This is a native and easy grower, probably the most problem-free of any of the birches that you're going to find out there. Nice bark. Yes, I know it's not the jet white bark that everybody wants, but it's attractive. And this was taken actually in our arboretum, and we planted these things small, and it's a spectacular grove of these plants now. Let's talk about a few woodies. Let me tell you, for a lot of reasons, if you're not growing blueberries in the landscape, you're missing out, and your customers are too. Now, blueberries have the unfortunate thing in my mind is that we as garden professionals a lot of times look at blueberries and say, it's a fruit plant. It's a fruit plant. You know, you put them in a fruit area. You don't use them in your regular landscape. They're kind of pigeonholed as being for some part of the season. Again, a lot of times everyone sells fruit early in the year, and we forget about it later in the year because it's like, I got to move on. I got to use that space for something else. And let me tell you, you're missing out on this, because blueberries as a group are probably the most important woody shrub out there for supporting pollinators and also for providing year-round beauty in your landscape. They bloom well in May, and if you've got blueberries in your yard already, you know that they are visited frequently by anything that's in the area. Pollinators love these plants. Obviously, you get the benefit of fruit later on in the year, but what other benefits do you get from these plants? Well, great fall color. I'm going to tell you that the fall color on blueberries rivals certainly what a burning bush puts out there, and it has the added plus of not being an invasive plant, especially for all you guys up there in New England who are watching this that can't get euonymus anymore. And also in the wintertime, they're extremely attractive. Now, anybody listening in from Maine, this is part of the landscape up there, but if you're driving in northern Maine and in November and December when it hasn't snowed like this year so that you've got snow up to the windshield kind of thing. But if you're out there in a snow-free area in cold weather, you'll see that there's hillsides that are on fire up there, and people who don't know go by those and say, "What the heck is that out there? What is that?" And it turns out those are the stems of the wild blueberries that are out there that support bees, mammals. Look great with the foliage on it. Look great when the foliage turns, and also look great with stem color. The stem color is a brilliant red color, and like I said, okay, I've talked enough about blueberries. Got to move on here, but you got to get out of that mindset that it's only early spring that you need to sell these plants. Red twig dogwoods supports loads of different pollinators, from butterflies to honeybees. Not a spectacular bloom, but a bloom that comes out in May or June. It has great berries on it that birds love. And again, birds, we're not talking about a whole bunch here, but birds are a part of what brings life to your gardens also. This is a great bird plant and beautiful in the wintertime because it has great stem color. Now, again, Cornus Florida I haven't listed here, but that's just a tree form of dogwood that is really important to have in your landscape too. Just do me a favor. Don't put it out in direct sun. Make sure you tell your customers not to plant it in direct sun. It just really doesn't want to go there. It loves along a wood, a semi-shaded wood line. It'll do great. You put it out there in the middle of a sunny desert area, like you saw on some of those, like you saw at that house with the great-looking evergreen there. You're going to be in trouble. So, button bush. Now this is if you're old enough like me, this reminds you of I was at a talk at a garden center, and I asked people, what does this flower actually remind you of? And I actually, one person who I'll have to say was at least a little bit older than me said, "Hey, that looks like Sputnik." And I said, "Yeah, you're right. It does. It looks exactly like that. It looks like that Russian satellite from almost 60 years ago that got launched up there." But it's a very interesting flower, and this plant is a pollinator bonanza. You can see that butterfly on one of the flowers here. But this blooms in May and June. It tolerates almost swampy areas. It's a larger plant. There's no doubt about it. It's got really nice fall color. But this supports loads of native pollinators. Is it something that I would tell you that you're going to put up and trim up into a nice ball next to your front step? No. But I would tell you that that kind of garden has come and gone, and that we need to persuade our customers that there's plenty of more beautiful things that they can do out there. Another tree that's native that is beautiful in bloom and supports lots of pollinators, Cercis canadensis. Wonderful flower color, really nothing like it out there, and another pretty easy plant to grow when you put it in the right spot. This is one that this is a plant Clethra that many people know as that plant in July and August that smells great in the landscape. And you're right, it really does. It blooms at that point in the year. It's an understory plant in the woods, can be used very well in landscapes, very tolerant plant, extremely fragrant bloom. There are pink forms of it out there also, and very attractive to pollinators. Okay, here's the showcase plant, if you will, for butterflies. All kinds of Asclepias are extremely important for monarchs. They need that for their, as we said earlier, for their caterpillars to consume when they're young, and that's where they usually pupate, and then the adults use it for the nectar. So very important plant. If you really want to help support monarchs, as in particular, Asclepias is an absolute must. And we can see that with Incarnata and Tuberosa, there's a number of different varieties out there. If you're from the Midwest, there's others out there that are native. And of course, if you go by roadsides, you can see lots of different Asclepias out there, and that's a good thing. Asters. This happens to be Aster divaricata. those lovely colored asters that are in the fall that we have, the New England asters, really what they're called as a group, are a great late pollen source and great support for native bees and butterflies. Now, people say, well, you know, the great thing about natives is in the summer and fall when a lot of my other stuff is going by that they look great, but geez, you know, there's really just not a lot of good looking stuff in the springtime. And I would tell you that while there's less good looking plants, there are some really key plants that are spectacular in the spring that can be masked in a garden and are just wonderful. And that one of these would be Aquilegia. It is one of the key real early blooming pollinator plants out there. Again, supports many different types of native butterflies that are out at that point, is a great source of pollen for bees. This is another spring bloomer. This is more in the May-June, long bloomer, but penstemon, a very key plant, a very nectar-rich plant for honeybees and for butterflies. Great foliage also, a little bit more of an upright plant, but perfect for grouping in the middle of or the back of a garden, and excellent for attracting bees and butterflies to the garden. Well, hey, listen, if you don't know Echinacea, you're probably either just starting in the business or you're in the wrong webinar. This is you know, let's face it, Echinacea is the plant, and Echinacea, it's an interesting thing to talk about. Because this is where sometimes native plants and non-native plants, to an extent, intersect here. Because we know out there there's been about 1,000 new varieties of Echinacea out there. And the genus Echinacea, obviously, is a very strong native genus. But are those plants that are going out there, oh geez, there's, you know, what am I thinking of here? There's all these different oranges and reds and all these Echinacea that I say kind of do gymnastics in the garden, if you will. And those lab creations, yes, they really do have the same genus, but guess what? They are not the same as far as being able to provide pollen. They are an unnatural cross out there. They are being selected for their flower form and flower color, and they're not being selected for what they can support out there. So what we really are looking for are species like Echinacea purpurea, Echinacea pallida, plants like that, or they're naturally occurring cultivars like this one, Ruby Star. These are, again, naturally occurring cultivars. It's something that was found in nature out there that's been reproduced and has literally the same amount of nectar and support for those pollinators that use it. Now, as we know, Echinacea are really the great all-purpose plant. They support butterflies and bees. They also, when the flowers go by, the seed in those cones is an absolute bird, what do I call that? A bird, you know, this is what happens when you talk for 45 minutes. You know, it's a bird delicacy. How's that? But they love the seed, and it's important to have those for support of all native things in the garden. This is a great early season plant right here, the Geranium maculata. A wonderful, wonderful plant. This is espresso. There's a green leaf variety. If you're walking in a wooded area in the Northeast in late April through mid-May, you're seeing these plants in bloom. You just don't know what they are. And there's always incredible activity around them. And as you can see, when grouped in a landscape, there's nothing that looks nicer out there. They work well in partial shade, even almost full shade. This particular one has great foliage, but another wonderful early blooming pollinator supporter. Now, this is a plant that I had to put up there because it really is, it's just such a huge activity plant in the landscape. And of course, I also put it up there because it's one of those plants that we have trouble selling here at Pride's Corner Farm. We kept it in here because it is really, in a lot of ways, one of the strongest of the summer pollinator supporting plants. easy to grow, grows in semi-shade easily. You can put it in a rough area. It'll take some wet. It's really almost indestructible. It's a great plant to group and go, is what I would say, and a perfect plant for putting in an off area that you can support pollinators with. Monarda, I don't think I have to say a whole bunch about Monarda. If anybody's grown this, there's a couple different selections of this, but it's a huge pollinator plant. Black-eyed Susan, again, brown-eyed Susan, black-eyed Susan, all the same, all much like Echinacea, great for people for insects seeking pollen, and also great for birds later on for the seeds that are left in those cones. Here's another good early pollinator, pollen source for native pollinators. Phlox divaricata as a group are perfect natives for this. Early bloom, spectacular bloom, again, semi-shade to full shade, which is always a bonus, and wonderful amount of activity and a key plant for certain pollinators. And this is what people always think about as a roadside weed. I know it when they see native plants. It's goldenrod, blooms in late summer. You know, this plant has such a bad rap. My kid's got allergies, can't grow that, they can't do this. I got to tell you, you can make up a lot of excuses. Some of them may be true, some of them may not be true, but this is such a great late bloomer in the garden, so easy to grow, and such a key plant for supporting native bees and butterflies. And of course, any garden phlox, Phlox funiculata, again, sort of the queen of the summer garden. There's no doubt about it. Great color and a great pollinator plant. And finally, hey, herbs. Now, are they natives? No, some of them are, but I'm going to tell you that most herbs, from fennel to thyme to basil to mints, all of them, lavenders, are all great plants for bees. And if you've had these, and many people grow herbs, you know how attracted they are to that. It's one of the great unsung heroes of the landscape. So lots of plants there, gone through quick. And so what do we got to do to help you sell American Beauties native plants to your customers? There's great need for it. We've established that. We've established the fact that that native plants are really the key from the homeowner and up point of view for making sure that we can help save pollinators. We have great information out there. We just need to pass it on to our customers. Well, where do you start? How about abnativeplants.com? Lots of great information on there, loads of plants, lots of garden plans, things like that that can work to help you sell particular landscapes, full landscapes, to your customer. What else? Well, we have posts. Obviously, you can see it sitting behind me here. That's our American Beauties native plant posters. But we're also creating new tools as we speak, and we'll get to those in a little bit when it comes to the poster kind of thing. So we've got great tags. Now, it's important. Tags are important for a lot of things. This tag sits up out of the pot, so it's really kind of a stop sign for customers. But it also has it's probably the most informative tag that you can find out there. Good color, good information. Where does this plant grow? Where is it native? What does it do? What does it support? All those kinds of things. It's a little mini encyclopedia on each plant, and a great selling tool. We have the American Beauties Tribe, which is really in a lot of ways a reproduction of a lot of those gardens that we have on the website, and lists all the plants that would attract birds, bees, butterflies, to work in shade areas, to work in rain gardens, that kind of thing. So another important tool that we have. The package itself, as I talked to you guys earlier in this talk, having that package, having the ability to get people to find those plants in the garden center and actually know that it's native is one of the biggest things that this package accomplishes. And it helps. It really does help make the plants look even better. So I talked about those new tools a couple minutes ago. We have many new posters that we're creating that are going to be available for you to buy yourself through our AB Native Plants website that are going to have many different topics. You can see a couple of them here. Native perennials, native berries for birds, native trees, all those kinds of things that maybe you can help focus your customers on a little bit more with these tools. The other thing that we're creating, we don't really have up here right now, is a poster that really says, Save the Pollinators, because that's one of the key things that people do know out there. We've established that people are out there and know this problem is out there and want to do something about it. So that ability to have that poster that we're going to create that actually says Save the Pollinators is really going to tie that problem with the American Beauties Native Plants as the solution. And one of the things that we're also going to be developing and are close to getting these printed right now are these stickers. These stickers which will go on each container that we send you that will help tie that message, that Save the Pollinator message, closer to these native plants. Along with that, we have something that you can use as a garden center buyer all the time. This is our American Beauties Native Plant 5-step program. And what does that mean? Well, what that means is we are providing a list for you for each period during the year, 5 different periods as we go from early in the year to late in the year, of what are the best plants to have at that point, what are going to give you the biggest bang for the buck for people coming in and looking for plants that have color, have great look in their landscape that they want to pick up. Even if they weren't native plants, they might want to pick them up because they're going to look so good at that time of year. We have this tool, and we can pass that on to you. A couple of lists that we're working on here. This is the rough draft of a list of the best American Beauties native plants for butterflies. Lots of information. Is it a nectar source? Is it a host plant? The bloom times, where it needs to go. Again, just another distillation of great information that you can have out there and have the plants along with it. And we have also a list of the top American Beauty bee plants. And again, for the same reason, a lot of the times these lists intersect, but again, perfect for getting your customers to pick the right plants for your pollinators at the right time of year. So, let's face it, we can help, we can all do something. It's one yard, one garden center at a time, and we all have a role in this. And having said that, I just want to make a little presentation here about where we are going with the rest of this presentation. I've talked long enough, probably too long for some of you people, and I apologize for that. But we do have, we're going to answer a few questions here. We're going to have a survey that you guys can do, and we really appreciate your feedback. We are going to have many of these things that we just went through as things that you can download and take if you want to, right off of this PowerPoint, or we will have them on our website also that you guys can download. And then for some of you, mercifully, we might end this. So let's take a look at some of the questions out there. I'm sure there's some people out there that are looking. So the first question I have here is from Clayton, and he says, where's the line drawn from the good pollinators and plants to the newer varieties that don't? Example, echinacea. Ruby Star compared to marmalade. Excellent question. Ruby Star, again, is a naturally occurring cultivar, a naturally occurring sport of Echinacea purpurea. Marmalade is basically an artificial cross, and probably the series of a number of different crosses. One that's only reproducible in the lab because it doesn't produce seed that are true, and there's a big difference both in pollen and receptiveness for pollinators going to that flower. So while it's a beautiful plant in the landscape, it may not be the greatest plant for a pollinator out there. And author Alexander is asking, there's an author message, a book that I did not catch, a great name. Great question. The author's name is Dr. Douglas or Doug Tallamy, Tallamy. Name of the book is Bringing Nature Home. It's out there, widely available in the usual horticultural press areas, and I'm pretty sure you can find it on Amazon. Diane writes, the stickers are terrific. Will you offer them not just on the pots? It would be great for our employees to wear in the yard and to give the kids to wear. It would be a good conversation starter. That's an excellent point, Diane, and if we're printing these stickers, we absolutely can provide them for you. So we'll make sure you talk to your sales team so they can keep you on the loop when they're in the loop and when they're ready. Got this from Kulaks. Will we be getting this information and program? Well, absolutely. It's great that I have Heidi sitting here next to me because I'm demanding right now that she gets this to you. So if she doesn't, you're going to call me direct so I can yell at her. How's that? Lynn writes, honeybees aren't native. How are the native bees impacted by the lack of native bees? Well, that's a good question. I'm not sure I can provide a good answer for that. You're absolutely right. Honeybees aren't native, but they're essential. There are many other native bees out there. How are they affected by the lack of by native bees being impacted by disease problems? It's a good question. You would think that there might be some other things opened up to them because of the lack of because there's less bees to go to some of these plants. But what I would really tell you is that there's probably not enough research that I know of to say that. But I will tell you that many of the same issues that are causing problems with honeybees are to a maybe lesser or more instance probably affecting the native bees also. Let's see, Francis. Echinacea, you need to stay away from cultivars that have poofy flowers. That's an excellent point. Many of these they've been modified. It's exactly what we were talking about with many of those, that kind of echinacea that's out there. Again, beautiful plants. No one says that you can't grow them, but you need a selection of plants and some natives to put around those things to actually have good echinacea in your garden, so that you can have the best of both worlds, if you will. Lynn writes, do you have AB native willows? Yes, Salix discolored is a native willow, and it's a wonderful early pollinator source. Those catkins, as you know, end up with little. They look a little bit like a Sputnik at 1.2 with those stamens out there. They're a great pollen source and easy to grow as long as you got a place where you can keep it confined. Giovanni, are there any other fruit bushes or plants that are very good pollinators, just as good as blueberries? What about vegetables as well? Great question. I would tell you that blueberries are the best ones, and they are the native. There are certainly other native fruit things. There's native fruit trees, certainly things like malice. Those are native trees that are a definite great pollinator tree. I just didn't. There's so many malice out there. There's not a lot of American Beauties. There's not a lot of American Beauties malice that we put, but malice as a group are wonderful for pollinator support. Different native trees like pawpaws that are really getting much more popular are actually one of the original fruit trees that the colonists saw in America and worked with. There's other native fruit trees from further south like persimmons, that kind of thing. All good native fruits for supporting pollinators. I'm waiting on Paul Larson here. We're going to test how good of a typer he really is here. But Paul owns a garden center in Northeast Connecticut, and he has been he's been a great supporter of the program and has sold many American Beauties native plants. Francis writes, any members of the genus Rubus? Absolutely. We do have Rubus or two in the program. Thank you for that reminder. Francis is always a great source of native information, and he lives it and breathes it, and I'm really happy he was involved in this webinar because he's a great source of information. Jared, I missed a little bit of this webinar. Will it be able to be seen again? Great question, Jared. We think of everything here at Pride's Corner Farms. This is going to go up on our YouTube page. You're going to have a link on our website so that you can that I can get world famous here and that you can watch this at your leisure. So it will be up on our website, and you can see it again if you dare. We're going to wait for maybe one or two more questions, and then we're going to move on to the survey. There's Paul. Geez, Paul, you really got to work on those typing skills. So the spring bloom perennials are an easier sell, but fall bloomers such as asters and goldenrod are very important for late summer pollen sources for honeybees. Mention this and you'll sell more. That's a great tip. And you know, it's sort of an interesting thing that goes to a lot of what goes on in fall sales out there in the garden center. A lot of times it's what we project to the consumer that gets them to buy stuff. And you know, we fight this battle, as I know many of you at garden centers do throughout the fall. And that is, you know, hey, listen, you know, I don't want to bring so much in. I don't want to have lots of you know, I'm trying to sell off all my stuff. And a lot of times when we do that, if we don't have great looking stuff out there, if we're not out there jacked up with our customers talking about things at that time of year, they're going to figure out that, hey, maybe there's just nothing going on in the garden center right now that's really important. So why should I buy anything at that point? So you definitely need to be out there talking to your customers, because there are awesome pollinator plants that are beautiful at that time of year that we can provide to you to sell. Thank you for being here, Eric. I appreciate that you like the information. And what we need to do is we print a copy of the draft posters. Absolutely. So what we are going to do next is we're going to bring the survey up on the screen, because we're trying to get some of you people that are trying to escape a little bit early to try to fill out and give us some information. Our goal here at Pride's Corner Farm is to present more of these webinars about many different subjects, hopefully things that are going to help you out, help us get more information to your staff, to you, to help you sell more things, and to be able to make that connection better between you and your customers. So this filling out this survey would be a wonderful thing for you to do for us, and it'll give us more information. And if you fill all that stuff out, after the survey comes off the screen, we're going to have that opportunity for you to download different items that we've shown in this talk. Nope, I see them. Good thing some other people are driving here. You can see that there's a number of different PDFs right there that are going to be ready for download shortly. So tell them to call. Tell them to. Boy, I'll tell you what. It's a good thing. It's a good thing I have people talk to me. I'm just a simple bee, folks. What can I tell you? You know, this computer technology, I just don't get. I apologize for that. If you want to download something, just click the arrow next to the thing. I suppose that's logical, but that's probably human logic, not bee logic. Sorry about that. So before I close off here, I wanted to thank again for being here. It's this has been something that we hoped would be informational. I got to tell you, it wasn't without a few moments that whether we would ever get this up, but it's encouraging to us that over 40 people were here at one time listening to the information. We think it's a great way to help you guys out, and there will definitely be more of these in the future. So I really appreciate your time, And thanks again. We're going to leave this open for you to finish the survey and also to download what you need, and we will not close it until we see each and every one of you has left the building, if you will. But yeah, I will tell you that after an hour and 5 minutes, you're probably saying, thank God, but I'm no longer going to be talking. So again, thank you. And hey, if you want this bee outfit or someone from Pride's Corner in it that can help you at your garden center, be sure to call your sales team, because what I found is everybody looks good in this costume. It's unbelievable. People don't think so, but I think so. And that's what counts. So thanks. Have a great day, a great weekend, and let's all hope for some better weather coming. Thanks.